welcome to Quirky Queen's Journals. My name's Kirsten. So in the last video I was showing you kind of some collages and abstract pictures that I'd been making using gel prints as a basis to start with. These are just a few that I've made since that video. So this gel print is one that I pulled on wet strength tissue paper. Quite like it, but it either needs more or what I'm doing just now. I've stuck it onto watercolour paper. I find that thicker paper or card underneath it, it's easier to apply the mixed media. And in this instance, I'm using soft pastels with gesso. I also use inktense and Mod Podge as a gloss medium. So here I've picked out two areas where I put down this forest green soft pastel and then I'm going over it with some gesso. Now this area here is too wet and I should have dabbed off the paintbrush to get on a rag to get some water off it before I mix this because it's such a small area. So I'm coming in now with a dry paintbrush and just kind of going over it. So I just rub the soft pastel onto the actual picture itself and then I add the gesso on top. So you do need to kind of rub the soft pastel in a bit or you'll be left with like sort of harsh lines. But I don't mind that. And what I'm doing as well is because I don't quite know where I'm going with this yet. I just know I'm wanting to pick out some shapes, especially from the negative spaces of the gel print. I'm just kind of laying down some blocked areas just now. I mean, I changed this colour as well. I don't stick with this colour. I chose it in the first place because obviously there was a sort of foresty green in the background. So I also used the gloss medium Mod Podge in this case because this gives a very chalky matte finish, which I love. Then we've got the gel print, which is like your acrylic paint finish. And then the gloss medium, I apply it to some areas to give a shiny finish. So I'm able to apply the same colour, but give it a slightly different finish. And I like that because it allows me to repeat things, but also to add a bit of variety. So this is a kind of sunshine yellow soft pastel. And I've sort of pulled out, it's not the same shape that's going through the gel print. I've pulled shapes together to create this shape. And it's part of what I love doing with this. It's very relaxing. And it's also been good for me to practice my trying to stay inside the lines when I'm colouring in. We do some distressing and some shading. And some of the, because I've probably done about 30 over the last week. Most of them have been quite small, postcard A5 size. And some of them I've used collage on. Some of them I've used kids poster paint. So I would really use whatever you've got. But just take your time with it and play about. The other thing is, sometimes you're not sure how much you want to take into the area. So what I would say is in that instant is take the smaller amount and then like I'm doing here, you can add in if you feel that, yeah, that was the right decision to make. But I would also kind of let your creativity get involved and not, if you feel like the rest of that's quite a big shape and if you feel that's the right thing to do, you should do that. You shouldn't hang back. I just wasn't sure about adding that bit in to start with. So at this point, this yellow is the sort of standout of the whole picture. So one of the reasons I like using the gel prints, apart from the fact that I just love gel prints in general, is you've got a good variety of shapes already in there. There's often layers, so there's like hidden shapes as well, so it's actually easy to sort of create further shapes by combining them. I'm always thinking about composition while I'm doing this. So for me, the yellow, because there's, you know, the purple in the background and there's purple going through the bronze area and the yellow. So for me, that's what I want to be the kind of dominant parts, and everything else is to support them. But I also like it to be very colourful. As you can see, the gel print already contained a lot of colours beforehand. So here I'm kind of trying to bring in a lighter colour, and it's a kind of light peachy colour, and with the gesso it's really quite light. And I've chosen, you don't really think about that big peachy ring shape with the circle on top. That actually ends up being what balances out the sort of big yellow and everything around it. And you'll see that at the end. Because I've tried to think of the elements of art while I'm doing it as well. You know, like, I'm not so great at colours, but I just love lots of different colours. I do try and use a limited palette. But we've got gel print colours, and then we've got soft pastel colours going on here. And then we add in inktense colours. So that's a bit hard to maintain. I was trying to think about value because that purple and that green, that top right hand section is obviously going to be quite dark. The sort of right hand L shape going up the right hand side and the bottom looks a bit more mid value. So these are going to be light, the yellow's going to be light, and it's about, you know, trying to make sure that we're balancing that and colours, and it all looks good together and it's interesting. So what happens is with the distressing, that will balance with this solid circle that I've got, that peachy circle with the peachy ring with the sphere on top. Also, when I've been doing this, I kind of show you the start and the finish of putting down the soft pastel and the gesso, because it's very much the same as when I put down those two green sections at the beginning. So I'm putting in blue here. I feel like it's a blue with a sort of a violety tint to it, which is why I chose it, because we've got the purple and we've got that kind of turquoise and we've got the green. So I feel like the turquoise and the green are sort of variations of each other, and the purple and this kind of violety blue will have variations of each other. That's my thought process on it anyway. If anybody's got any tips, please let me know about anything that I've been doing in this video today. Doing a lot of these does improve your hand control, but I still go out with the lines. But when I do, I just change the shape slightly to suit. So with the lines as well, once, you know, as these layers start to build up, some of the lines I keep a bit of the gel print, a hint of that coming through. I'll apply shading, as you'll see soon, and also having the kind of distressed areas as well. And then we've obviously got the gel print edging as well. So for me, this definitely was easier than starting on paper, because there was a lot in place already. So I'm using Inktense here with the intention of doing some shading. Now the soft pastel with the gesso, it is quite difficult to blend that with the Inktense because wetting on top of the gesso again tends to, it can remove it slightly, but it also slightly changes the shade. I do love those Inktense colours though, they're just, I love how they work. I don't want to add too many outlines, I just a bit to add variety, because what I'm liking about this is, although we're pulling shapes out, I like the fact that it's kind of, in some instances, it's difficult to see where one shape begins and ends. I'm just trying to get some of it to drip into the water, by kind of, to try and get it almost like you would do with watercolours, but it's not playing the game. But I'll persevere on. So when it comes to texture, I was talking about the, you know, how the soft pastel and the gesso has a very chalky matte finish, and, you know, using the gloss medium will give me some shiny areas, and obviously there's some texture within the gel print itself, just through the, you know, the way the paint picks off the plate, there's always kind of flaws, and the way the colours react on top of each other. We've also got some metallics here as well, which is a more muted shine than the Mod Podge. There's actually quite a lot going on here, and I'm adding even more to it. Oh, I just think it's like a big wonderful playground. I take it safe with this one, and I literally just outline. I don't mess about after the last one. I left a lot of this in purely to kind of show you working with the Inktense, and actually the gesso with the soft pastel, I love the finish on it, I really do. But it can go quite streaky, and obviously, you know, adding more water to it just makes it a little bit more difficult. It misbehaves. But I think the overall effect is worth it. So this is the closest that I have to purple. I've not got a great range of purples in the soft pastel. I know you can see some in the bottom left corner, but they're honest, they're not my preferred purples. They're more kind of pinky purple or pale. So this is an Inktense, and it's a kind of dark pink colour. So my idea was to kind of do the same as I'd done with the blue Inktense, but then I got a bit carried away, and I'm like, oh, I've just put separation into this big yellow shape. But it is the closest I've got to purple, and I did want to have that as my kind of shading in the yellow. So this is how the distressing started. Because as that gesso, once it's dried and then you're adding water to it and making it wet again, it actually just wants to come off. So I used that to my advantage, and I chose parts to make wet, and it kind of resolved this pink issue, but at the same time provided me that extra something in the yellow that I wanted. Because this is the large shape, I don't want I didn't want it to be quite so solid. Because the visual weight, something that's like a solid block with a defined edge has more visual weight than something that's bigger than it, but it's got like a blurred edge. Its colour's kind of a bit all over the place. Basically, it's a bit rough looking. It's almost like it weighs less than the solid, clearly defined, solid, coloured shape. I'm sure there's a much more technical way to express that. And also there's probably more information about visual weight than I've provided. But for me, it's a good kind of simple way of thinking about it. So I've got a rag there. That rag is actually a child's sock. We had a clean out of the bedrooms a couple of weeks ago. So we got a lot of odd socks and a lot of small socks out of it. And I thought, well, they'll do to mop up my paint. So this, I wasn't expecting this to turn out as well as it did. This distressing on the yellow with the kind of dark pink. But it turns out great. I did leave a lot of the distressing in just to show you. So, you don't want to go in and put big puddles and pull at it. I just give it a rub, put some more on, give it a rub. Because then you're in control of the distressing and you're taking away the amount you want to take away in the area you want to. So I decided to continue this on down the line. But as you can see, I have still kept some solid areas in there. And what's nice about this as well is the area that doesn't have the gesso on it, like the gel print that's not been painted on yet, that's not going to come away. So you can rub and not worry too much if you go out with the yellow shape. So what I'm doing now as well is I'm having to look at the little areas because I want to I want it to look like it flows. So therefore I need to add a bit of distressing into the smaller areas as well. So here, that's a very small area, but I was able to rub at it and, not disturb the kind of turquoise or bronze. The thing about the soft pastel and the gesso, it's quite streaky at first when you put it on. But especially a lighter colour on top of a darker colour. But as you build them up, they do become more solid looking. So I've decided that was too light. So what I've done is I've added in it's kind of like, a kind of stone colour and an orange colour, and it's too strong. And what happens is that yellow all of a sudden isn't popping from the page anymore because this orange, it's almost its equal. And the picture's no longer, it's lost. And it's really clear to see the difference that adding that kind of bright orange has made to the yellow. It was a good learning curve for me to see that. Like so obviously. So I do continue on with it. But then what I'm going to do is go over it with a very cool light brown. It was too pale as it was before. And we did need something to complement the blue, but the orange is too strong. So first of all, I tried this kind of very pale blue, and I just did the ring. And it helped somewhat, but not enough. So there it is there. You can see it has helped, but the orange is still too strong. So I'm using this cool light brown. And it works because the orange is still there. You can still see there's an orange tone to it. Is tone the right word? But do you see the difference already? It really does make a difference to the yellow. So, So to make the yellow pop more, I'm putting some of the Mod Podge, the gloss medium down to give it a bit of a shine. I do change my paintbrush in a minute because this wasn't working. I thought it would be good for defining the edges, but the shape's just too small in some areas for the size of that paintbrush. So it is hard to see the impact because obviously with the lights, when there's been water applied to the picture, it gives that glossy effect, and the Mod Podge is doing the same thing. But when it's dry, the difference is obvious. Subtly obvious. I love that yellow shape because it does look like it's got movement, but this kind of man in the middle, this kind of sitting down shape in the middle, it looks static. And it's almost like the stuff's happening around it. So I'm also going to put Mod Podge on this bronze. I just wanted to break it up a bit because I felt that kind of violety blue was all in the left-hand side. So I wanted to introduce it into the right-hand side, but not to keep it very subtle because that's a quiet area and I want to keep it as a quiet area. So I'm going to add Mod Podge on top of the turquoise now, so that I'm basically trying to make it so that I've got the shiny effect sort of, in different areas of the picture. This took me about probably 2.5 hours, including drying time, to do, because there's a lot of thinking. You don't just go from one step to the next automatically. You have to sit and look at it and decide, what do I need to do to make it balanced? What do I need to do to make it progress? What do I need to do to make it, to give the picture that you want? So this is the first time we've brought this area into play. And it kind of mimics that peachy ring with the orb on top. So this is like a purple and pink ring with a yellow orb in the middle. And this nearly balanced it, but it still felt just a bit off. So I'd added in a bit of the peachy colour there to try and see if that would add the balance. But with the yellow, it didn't. So I'm going to distress the blue areas. And that didn't work. See the yellow and the pink shape with the distress, and that looks quite natural. But within the blue shapes that I did it on, it looks like I've distressed it. It looks unnatural. It looks forced. At the start, you spend less time thinking and more time painting. And as you progress, you spend more time thinking and less time painting. So what we're doing now is we're basically at the finishing touches. And what do we need to do to fix it, to balance it, to just make it feel finished? So I've added a bit of blue over the top of the blue to try and hide the distressing a bit, to see if that helps. This bit here was actually a bit of tissue paper that was over the top of the gel print. So I put a bit of Mod Podge on that to see if it would make it look less like tissue paper. I'm just putting another layer of yellow into that orb to make it more of a solid shape. The orb. It's hard to say circle when you've got different circles. And then what I'm going to do is I glaze over with just water and soft pastel. I glaze over the whole yellow, the large yellow shape. And then I covered that little bit of turquoise that was separating them. But because it's just a glaze, it's still there. It's just a bit muted back. I do think adding this glaze on top just gave it the finish that it needed. And then I've extended it right out to the end of the picture as well, to the edge. But just with a glaze. So that, you know, it doesn't become a focal point basically. But it gives it it continues it almost in a way you'd expect, I suppose, if it's flowing and moving. So this is how I end up finishing it. I'm putting a light brown glaze, just water and the light brown over the blue. I do come back and do another layer with gesso and the light brown. I put that violety blue over that line there, see right there? That finishes it as well. It's all these little things, but it's also about knowing when to stop. I mean, I could have added more to this quite easily, I think. I still could go in and add, but I was happy with where it was. I felt I had an interesting picture. It was balanced and actually told a story of someone sitting down while everything's going on around them. Maybe in a relaxed way due to the colour choices. There certainly doesn't seem to be tension in here. And there's nothing really coming across as kind of fast moving. Well, I've really enjoyed this and the other 29 that I've made. I'm thinking of just putting out a video. I put out a video where I explained my processes when I did an art journal flip through. And I'm thinking of just putting out a sort of silent one, just flipping the pages for you to see. But anyway, I'm really happy with this. I feel like, you know, it's achieved what I want it to achieve. And I like that it's brightly coloured. That is something I like. And I like that the shapes are quite organic. And I like that I feel like I felt like I kept controlling the picture instead of it just not knowing where I was going. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I could control it. So that's progress, eh? Anyway, I hope you enjoyed and thanks very much for watching and take care and I hope to see you soon. Bye!